been wanting to make a video for a while now about teaching math in a homeschool co-op, and I'm teaching Apologia Math Level 6 this coming fall. So I'm going to be planning, and I figured as I plan, I'll just kind of fill you all in on my process. I have taught so many different levels of math at my co-op, from kindergarten math up through pre-calculus, and I think that it can be super beneficial at a homeschool co-op, but sometimes people don't know what does math look like at a co-op? How do you make that happen? How do you make it effective? So I'm gonna just kind of bring you along on my journey for prepping this, a 6th grade math class, but feel free to drop something in the comments if you're teaching a middle school or high school level math, because I've taught those as well and I can give you some tips. And I also taught an elective of math games that was just kind of like for fun. So I have a lot of different ideas, and I've definitely learned a lot along the way. So I would love to help you out so that you're not starting from scratch the way that I did. Hey, I've been working on growing this channel, so if you can hit like or subscribe, that will really help me. You can always drop me a comment if there's content you want to see. Almost all my videos come from seeing questions from homeschoolers, and so I would love to know what you would find helpful, anything about math and homeschooling, and I'll make you a video. So if you are using Apologia Math for your co-op, the first thing you definitely want to do is download their free co-op guide. I helped create this, and I was just amazed with how much Apologia put in here for homeschool families. So I have the link in below, but you can download this for free, and I'll just show you a few highlights. So one thing that I thought was really helpful is they give several examples for how you can teach Apologia in a co-op setting, and there's a lot of different options. So even this section on field trip approach, I thought was really well done, and was like, oh, I didn't think you could just be pulling off all the field trips. So obviously that's probably a little more science aligned than math. And they have in here a guide to all their different sciences with a breakdown that you can follow for how you would teach preschool science. You're probably familiar with their elementary levels. We use these in our co-op. They even have activity pages. So these are great if you need like a little time filler at the end of your class. You can just print these off. Let me jump ahead to math. This is obviously the section that I worked on. Okay, so there were two main options that came to mind for me in how you're teaching Apologia Math in a co-op setting. So the coordinated schedule is where all the students are working through the same lessons each week, and they have to stay together. This is the option that I'm doing this year, so that's what you'll be seeing in this video. But you can also use an asynchronous schedule where there's a little more variety, and basically they just need to be at the same point every time you get to a project. Okay, but now I'm just gonna focus on the coordinated schedule in this video. I think most people would probably use a coordinated schedule. It can be a little challenging making sure all your families stay together, but it makes the class time easier. All right, and then these are possible class schedules. This is this came out of so much trial and error on my part. I had an hour every time I taught. Well, I guess kindergarten math, I had like an hour and a half or something. And it's such a precious amount of time, right? Because you only see them once a week. So I really fiddled around each year with what is the best use of that time, and keeping it really tight. So for the younger ages, you can see what I'm suggesting. The first 10 minutes is kind of going over what they did that week. And then the next 30 minutes is kind of teaching into what's coming. And then you have 20 minutes at the end to play games, either from the skills practice or from the current chapter. And then for levels 4 through 6, it's pretty similar. 10 minutes on the review, 30 minutes to work on what's coming, but you'll notice I also have the problem solving lessons in here, and then games at the end. The main thing I think with Apologia Math is if you can hit games in the class, because they're a lot more fun with other kids, do the projects in the class, the parents will love you for that. And then in levels 4 through 6, try to hit all the problem solving lessons in the class, because then you can do discussions on how different people solve the problems. And it's just really rich, and I think an effective use of your time. Another resource that Apologia has for everyone, co-op teachers and just those using the program, is the Book Extras website. And I definitely recommend over the summer, before you start teaching, you get on Book Extras, type in that password, and see all that we have on here. I'm going to be highlighting this content here in just a minute, which is the main content, but there is so much more that they've organized by chapter. If you're ever looking for just some extra information or you want to flesh something out, I always have to work with the curriculum that I choose for a co-op, and sometimes I'm adding and sometimes I'm skipping. That's just part of teaching, right? Okay, but the things I wanted to highlight that's most important are these downloads here at the top. And you can open it in Book Extras, but I would recommend that you and your students download it and save it on your computer. It just makes it so much easier. So I have downloaded them and I've put it in the folder I have for my class. The first thing I want to show you is the teaching guide pages. And some of you, this is going to be review, but I've had enough people miss it. I just want to make sure. So everything that is in the back of this book, the tear out pages, is available as a PDF on the Apologia website. So you can go on here if you need an extra copy, or if you want students to print it and bring it into class. The foldables, all of this is here. Sometimes it's nice to get a clean copy. So all that's available. I think this is also just great for students to have, So the other thing is the extra worksheets. So these are extra resources that we created to give to families that they can download. And so most of it goes with the skills practice. So for instance, in Unit 1, they are supposed to be practicing their factors. And so I created some worksheets for them if they want to do a worksheet. So you could also be using these in class, right? For me, I already have it downloaded. I actually sometimes print it out at the start of the year because it's easy to forget that you have this available. So for instance, these missing digit puzzles where they have to figure out what's missing from the problem, that would be a lot of fun. This would be a lot of fun in class. So just take a second and flip through. And I'm going to be telling my students on the first day that one of the things they need to do is download this and save it in a folder on their computer, so that if I'm ever saying, hey, do page 17 of the Book Extras extra worksheets, everybody knows where that is. Actually, to be honest with you, I probably will assign something from this the first week just to make sure that they have found it. All right, so let me walk you through my thoughts, and I hope you don't mind. I actually have my notes here because I don't want to forget to say anything. So one other note about Apologia, if you're using Apologia for your co-op, they love co-ops and they want to help you. And so reach out to them. Sometimes they can provide a sample curriculum where you can look digitally online for a little bit when you're trying to choose your book. They have a lot of resources, like I just showed you with the Kickstart guide. So just don't be hesitant to reach out because they want to help you. They want it to go well, right? All right, so I'm getting ready to plan here. And one of the first things I'm going to create is my letter. So I send out a letter to all the families with some basic information. The Apologia Co-op Kickstart Guide actually has some thoughts on what to put in your letter, and it's really well done. But some of the things I'm going to say in mine are the materials. So for sure, all my students need both these books. So I'm providing the ISBNs, and I want to make sure they don't skip this book because they're going to need all those tear out pages and they're going to need to check their answers. So just make sure. I'm also going to be making sure families understand that they need it. I'm having them I'll get to this in a second, but I'm having them do some of the lessons before our first class. So I know a lot of times we take vacations in August and I don't even always get my orders in on time for curriculum. So I just want to make sure my families are set. And then I'm going to be covering my expectations, how long the work's going to take. I typically say 45 minutes for levels 4 through 6 of Apologia Math. The thing is, it really varies by kid. So we'll see, but I at least like to give a ballpark so parents kind of have an idea. With the expectations, I should add that I give a placement test, well, not for kindergarten math, but every time that I've taught pre-calculus, pre-algebra, what do I have taught? Geometry. I always give my co-op students a placement test or a readiness test because I want to know, obviously, if they're prepared for the class, but also I have found it's much more helpful to have conversations ahead of time about a student maybe having some gaps or even a student being really advanced and maybe being bored. The more you can have those conversations in advance, it's just a lot better. So I'm sure someone can comment an amen to that one. I just think it serves everybody. It serves the student, it serves the parent, it serves me as the teacher. So when I'm looking at expectations, I already have a good picture of each student coming into my class and sort of their background, and we've already had some conversations around that. So with that said, I think it's going to be about 45 minutes a day, but I do have some students which will maybe be spending closer to an hour a day at first because they're trying to catch up on some skills. And then maybe some other students are going to whip through in 20 to 30 minutes. We'll have to see. But 45 minutes is kind of what I'm telling people, so at least have a ballpark number. Supplies. So one of the great things about if you're using Apologia is the last page of the teaching guide has a complete list of all the supplies you need for the year, and the first top part here are the math specific ones. So for instance, for math 6, they need fraction tiles, a protractor, a 4-operation calculator, just those little inexpensive calculators. I'm debating, there is a chance that I'm gonna grab some of those. I have a budget for my class. So there is a chance that I'll say, I'm gonna grab fraction tiles for everybody. I have to see. But if not, obviously I'm gonna give people a heads up, and I might even send them a PDF of this list so they can kind of be gathering it. Still thinking that through, but just cueing you into my process. And definitely in the past, like I've had graphing calculators were required for some of my higher level classes, making sure everybody's getting those supplies. Okay, the last thing that I often put in my welcome letter is a happy message. That's literally what I wrote down, happy message. But I often do a short video of just me introducing myself, telling them I'm excited to be their teacher, that I'm praying for them because I always pray for my students over the summer. I want them to feel welcomed and like that I'm happy that I get to teach them. So, and then sometimes I cover some of the things that I wrote in the text of the body of the email in that video. Like, hey, I hope you're prepared to work hard. We're gonna learn a lot. It's gonna be great, that kind of thing. All right, so that's my welcome letter. Let me tell you a few specifics about my co-op so that when I'm sharing about how I'm doing this, it makes sense. My co-op meets once a week on Thursdays, and then we assign work for the days of the week, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We meet 30 times, so it's a 30-week class, but we also have 3 field trip weeks. And I pretty quickly, as a math teacher, told them that I need to assign work through those field trip weeks. So I have about 33 weeks to work with, and this course is a 36-week suggested pacing guide if you're looking at this. So I already sat down and I looked at the dates that I had, and the way that I'm gonna be able to kind of squeeze 36 weeks into 33 weeks is I'm giving them a week's worth before we meet. I went back and forth on that, but I decided to have them jump in. And also the projects are all 2 days on here. If you see, like you can see that project. And we're gonna do all the projects in class. So that really helped me pare things down. And sometimes I have them doing a test on the same day as a lesson or something to make it fit together. I do think it's good to sort of look at your dates. I've learned the hard way that if you have a project or a test like right after a break, it doesn't really work well because kids forget stuff. So I try to pace it a little better. So I'm pacing this over 33 weeks. What else? I always get a range of abilities that has happened every time. I've had really strong students who are now in college studying engineering. And I've had students who hate math and have some gaps and they want to catch up, and I want to be there to help them. As a general rule, I teach to the middle. A lot of times at our co-op, we offer some type of optional incentive for the students who want to just fly and they need that extra challenge. And I'm normally talking with parents about ways that they can adjust it for a student who's maybe struggling. But I do have to really stick to that teach to the middle, because one thing that can happen is you can have a pretty vocal student who's getting lost and they're taking up your class time asking questions. And so I always have a heart for that student, but I've learned that a lot of times I need to see if I can catch them another time, because otherwise the whole class time can get soaked up in these questions and you kind of get bogged down. So that's a conversation that I try to navigate with the parent, with the student, you know, making sure everyone feels loved and cared for, but also really guarding that I only have 1 hour a week, so it's very precious. All right, another thing I try to do is ease the burden for the parents as much as possible. What are the pain points? So like for this, we're doing all the projects in class. The projects are so fun, right? But they're a lot of work for parents. So for instance, this one, equations posters, they do this at the end of a unit on algebra, and I will most likely grab poster board for everybody because I've learned that's the pain point. It's like, we don't have a poster board. And we'll do this in class and then we'll get to share it in class. Another pain point that I'm definitely taking on and making sure we do in class are the problem solving practice. These are those longer problems. There's one per unit. The main reason I want to do these in class is so that the kids can share and hear how other kids solve them. And then just supplies. So anytime I can, even if it's like M&Ms or whatever, I'm going to be looking ahead at the list. And if I can, I'm going to bring it into class and just distribute it and let the parents know, like, hey, I got M&Ms for everybody or whatever it is. I'm like looking at what are some of the things that they need. Oh, a miniature bag of Skittles. So, you know, it's easier for me as the teacher to buy a big miniature bag of Skittles and give them out. I experienced this personally this past year in my son's literature class. His teacher bought air dry clay for the whole class and gave everybody a small pack of air dry clay. And then that week they had to sculpt something based on the book they were reading. And it was great. And it would have been such a pain for me to remember to go get air dry clay. So that's something I try to do. With the parents, I just try to partner as much as possible, keep those communication lines open. And then one thing that tends to happen every year, I just wanted to give you a heads up in case it happens to you, is a lot of times September and October are a little rough and kids are spending more time than they expected on my class. And then we get into a rhythm and it gets easy. Like they're like, oh, this isn't that bad. I'm just mastering the material. So I speak right into that. So I'm just going to tell them it might feel like a lot in September and October as you're maybe relearning some facts or filling in some gaps, but I promise you it'll get easier. Make sure you're putting in the time in September and October. All right. My schedule. Yeah, so they're going to do, since I meet 4 days a week, or I meet once a week and then they have 4 days, my schedule's pretty simple. We're just going to basically be following this, and they'll be doing 4 lessons at home and then coming to me in the class. We're basically following what was on that co-op guide. The beginning part of the class, I will be checking their books and like giving a sticker or some classwork points, because I think kids love that validation, taking questions, or maybe I'll do a couple similar questions from what they did, and then we'll be moving forward. Sometimes I'm gonna teach future lessons, actually go over the examples on the board. Sometimes we'll be doing a lesson, depending if it's like a quick one, that type of thing. Testing. So here's how I'm handling testing. This is very different. This is personal preference. There are tests for level 6, They're all in the back. So levels 4, 5, and 6 have tests. I did this differently with my high school classes. For this one, they're going to take the test at home. They're going to self-grade, their parent most likely, because the answers are all in this book. And then they're just gonna report the grade to me. And I might also be like, what are questions, message me which questions you missed so we can go over those in class. So I'm not gonna be doing the grading at this level. When I taught high school, I definitely did the grading, and the past 2 years I taught like a 7th grade class and a pre-algebra class. I did the grading. For this one, I'm looking to not grade as much. Okay, 2 other things I wanted to say. One is a rhythm. So I've definitely learned that the more you can be consistent, the better. So as much as possible, I'm going to have that rhythm of 4 lessons, we come to class, 4 lessons, we come to class. And sometimes I'll supplement, throw some extra worksheets for a little extra practice, but I'm gonna be as consistent as possible because I've just found that it just makes everything better if I'm almost always doing the same thing. And then if we are doing something different, like last year in my pre-algebra class, 1 week, we weren't using the book, we were doing a project. I made sure I gave all the parents a heads up, hey, this week looks different. You need to download this, you need to have this, so that people weren't expecting the rhythm and then it wasn't there. The last thing I want to talk about is the first day. So one thing I do on the first day is I introduce the book. I have us explore the book. I've done this with every book, not just the book I wrote, right? I will be talking about book extras and showing them and telling them to download that. I will be showing them sort of like we do a flip through where they actually go through the book and kind of see what they're going to be learning. I'll be talking to them about how this book is laid out, doing the activities, the examples. I'm gonna make sure the kids know how to read an example to follow it and go step by step, because some kids skip the examples and they go right to the lesson. And then I'll be showing them this as well. Even I taught a class where kids didn't realize that it was okay for them to check their work, and everybody's different on this, but I'm okay with them checking their work as long as they've already tried all the problems. They're not copying or something. And so I'll be showing them, look, you can look in here, or your mom can, that kind of thing. All right, well, let me know if I missed anything. If you have any questions, comment below. And yeah, if you're teaching math at a co-op, I'd love to know what book you're using and kind of what your plan is.